welcome everyone to part 3 of the CFP series. So until now we have discussed about the security conferences, when is the right time to actually think of submitting your paper, and we have also talked about how do you structure the content of your paper and your research, and what do you put in so that it is effective for reviewers to understand clearly and go forward with it. In this third part, I will give you some idea around from my learnings from the past few years of reviewing papers, hundreds of them. What is it that reviewers look for? What are the quick wins for you as a submitter? And also some other formats of, speaking in security conferences. Now, we talked about, just to go back and touch a little bit about the outline, one important and primary thing is to have a detailed outline, which means abstract, means your problem statement, you are clearly calling that out, it's very crisp, and what you have been able to achieve in that space, whether it is exploit, whether it is doing the implementation and things like that. Of course, give your bio and the rest of the co-speakers that you have. If you have a research background, it's good to put that. Also, if you have speaking experience, it's good to put that. So that also says a lot about, how much research you've been doing in this field. In your outline, we discussed in the last part. If you haven't checked that out, definitely go ahead and check out part 1 and part 2. In part 2, I detail on how do you write the paper and what all to structure, how to put things forward. Complete the outline, read it again, make it quantitative as much as possible. Also, many times it helps to have time allocation for yourself. That's not much in terms of how it impacts the reviewer's decision, not really. But then for you, it helps to understand what are the important primary areas for you to talk about. And of course, how did you proceed towards your solution or your exploit or the vulnerability and so on and so forth. So have that uniqueness and newness clearly called out in your outline. The key takeaway is nothing which we discussed in detail. It's important to have that very clear in terms of what are the actionable takeaways for the audience of the conference. And lastly, of course, as much as hands-on is possible, please do bring it out. It also always helps the audience to understand something very clearly if they see it visually. So if you have more demos, even if they're recorded, it's fine. But then, you should be able to demonstrate the things which are the work that you have done to most parts. Except for, there are some defensive security talks where you have implemented something in your organization. Now, if you can anonymize parts of that and show, that's great. In videos, in configuration, or even in case of code and things like that. Many times we have these scripts that we write that we make public for other organizations to, and for the industry to take up and follow. Those kind of things are also very good to show. So as much as you can actually show, you can talk to your org and see what it is that, if that anonymization is good enough and they're okay, go ahead with it and demonstrate as much as possible. What do reviewers look for? So one and the most important thing is they're trying to understand what you're trying to convey. So that's the most important thing. So communication here is the key in terms of however deep research you've done, if you're not being able to convey it as compared to, because there are hundreds of other researchers who are doing research in similar areas, similar subjects, similar depth. You may need to, it's okay to take help from your friends, from colleagues, mentors, others, to look at your research and say if it is clear enough in terms of not just the abstract, but overall paper to convey what you did, what you achieved, and what's really new in that, right? Have detailed description. What did you achieve by that? How that is relevant for the technical domain itself, for businesses, for enterprises, for industry. Depending on the impact of your work, you can actually call that out very clearly. It should be hands-on. So this is something that in most of the conferences, at least that I am a part of, they definitely value that a lot. The more hands-on the work is, the more hands-on you can get in terms of demonstrating, illustrating what you have worked on is better. Yeah, you can do that through the code, through running and automating and showing it in your tool, in your automation, in your videos, in the way you executed, or also through numbers. because numbers play a major role in terms of the results you get from having done implementations, which you cannot necessarily demonstrate in an environment like a conference, but that shows how much work you have actually put in all of that. And limited submission, this is something I wanted to call out. There are few, not many, but there are few researchers where you will see there are 6, 7 or multiple papers called out. When you do a lot of that, too many papers, it also becomes difficult for first of all for the submitter, for yourself, to focus on 1 or 2 paper and bring out the technical depth, bring out the originality, but in a way also dilutes your chances of, because there are just too many papers which are maybe similar, and then it's actually ends up confusing the reviewers in a way, exactly what is it that you're trying to stress or emphasize on, and to look at the relevance of each and every one of them, and fit it in the larger picture. So try to limit your submissions to fewer areas of research, because that's also when you go to higher technical depths. So it works both ways. To be selected though, so this is where, where you are read and understood, you are in an equal plane as a lot of other submitters who are also good researchers. But what is it that will make you stand out? Few things that I have seen, and we may have lot other opinions for other reviewers who do that. Demos. So if you can give demos, practically demonstrate most of the things that you have done, either through numbers, through actual automation, through running your code, showing your exploit, and all of these things, it matters. Yeah, because it's right there, and it's of course undeniable. Technical depth. So the extensiveness of your research actually stands out with more depth. So if you have gone to greater depths, you understand the variations of, for example, a certain attack. You understand how it impacts different components in the supply chain lifecycle, for example. So if you have done all of this, if you have taken many targets, many kind of apps that you've been working on, and you have taken a sample set and you've done a research like that where you are collecting that, and deriving conclusions, then that, so it shows the extensiveness of your research and the value of your work. If there is advances in research, that means you've added something new, then that is something definitely you should call out, that makes the paper more unique. If it is something disruptive, it's completely changed the way we think about something. So there has been a protocol that has existed like forever, and then you were able to find a vulnerability, either in the way it operates or is generally implemented, and something new that nobody else knew in terms of hacking it, then of course that is disruptive. And there are many such ways in which a paper can stand out. One thing you can call out is the value it brings on to improve security. So if you know that there are many other vulnerabilities in the same space for the same kind of tech stack, and yours is another one, maybe you can look at what is the USP it brings to the table, what is unique about it, how does it improve what has been already done in this field. Similarly, in terms of security, if you have been trying to, your paper talks about defensive security, then you should definitely call out how it improves security exactly, other than the specific thing that it changes. Overall, in security, how is it relevant in terms of improving and contributing to security? Quantification numbers, like I told you, they stand hand in hand with demos. They show that you have done the work, that you have seen the results, and you can quantify them. Of course, put only the authentic numbers. That is actually the most impactful and realistic. Of course, add all the details if it has enough the details for reviewers to understand. It is appreciated and valued. And delta applies to all kinds of papers. What has been done earlier versus what you are adding as of today with your research and this paper matters a lot. So AI security in general may not really add value, but what is it in terms of what is existing and what new you're bringing to the table will matter. So always look for that. I wanted to take maybe a minute or two and also talk about different formats of speaking in the conference. So while that stands out for what reviewers look for in a paper, oftentimes we have good work that we have done in areas which are existing, which people know about in general, but not in the detail and depth and extensiveness that you know it for. So if you have paper where you can talk a lot more, you've explored an existing area a lot more, it could actually become a workshop if you have sufficient technical depth, if you're talking about the right things, if you can of course demonstrate that, and you can also teach a class of people how to mature themselves in that space. This is not for beginner talks definitely, but then it is for places where you yourself are mature and you can take them to that advanced level. So think of depth, think of hands-on trainings and things like that. It's good to be a workshop, so you can submit it in that area. Workshop will be more like a formal setup where you talk about end to end about a certain technology, attack, vulnerability, or a specific technical security domain, and audiences can learn from it and hopefully can also practice and do hands-on side by side. So in this case, you have to think of what are your prerequisites, any equipments you need, anything else, labs, demos that you will provide. So that makes it more end to end. There's also another format in which talks happen, which is villages. Village is slightly more informal. So when it's very informal and open style of things, where you can also get to make it more interactive. So it's not just you knowing it in depth. You definitely need to know your area in depth. You should have worked in that area, and that is when you're going ahead and doing a village. It needs to be more interactive in the sense of being village. It can be more informal. People can have more hands-on learning there also, but by doing a lot of these activities around that area. So you would have heard of social engineering village, lockpick village, where you're given these locks where you work on them. It's way more fun actually than workshops. You don't need to be very prepared, but as a speaker you need to be equally prepared in both the cases. That idea of fun, making it informal, actually is the theme of a village. That's why it's called a village. It has a broader audience, many new people, beginners, wide variety. It's not just an advanced, it could also be beginner level stuff that you're touching upon and then going towards advanced. So you will find that entire spectrum, and clear description, goals, activities that you will take them through. The logistic support that you need, just like workshops, you'll have to provide here as well, because villages are not having too many boundaries, right? It's very loosely attached and very free flowing kind of a thing, where you're prepared with what activities you want to show and everything else, but then there is more liberty and creativity that you can bring in your villages. You can have CTFs and whatnot to make it fun. So the idea of villages and workshops is different in that way, and you definitely should consider submitting under these buckets. If you think the topic is there's nothing really new, but there is a lot to talk about and do in these areas for people to learn and know. So all in all, always when submitting a paper, err on the side of detail is what I would say. So the more detail you can provide, it's always better. Of course, we are bound by NDA always, so your details will not be taken, but giving more details means that the reviewer really knows what you're talking about. They can see it the way you're seeing it, right? Look at the key takeaways. Are they really good enough for the audience to attend your talk? It's something that you have to think of. See how many POCs, tool releases, if you have, they're very, very good. If you have demonstrations, they're very good. How hands-on you can get with the subject you're talking about always makes it better. If you have responsible disclosures, that's generally what's always preferred in the conferences. If you have acknowledgements, do put it. So the more you can provide in the paper, the better it is. Numbers, go for it as much as you can quantify. Good. Reusability, any components that you're creating as a part of the process that you are ready to release, which will be reusable. Definitely. I mean, it could be in the form of tools, but more than that, it could also be frameworks. It could be concepts, it could be calculators, people release, whatnot, right? Anything that contributes to the security landscape is reusable. which you will extend to the audience is always better. And lastly, see and think how it actually impacts the community and the industry in the longer scheme of things, in terms of its relevance, in terms of its contribution, and anything that comes out of it. So think of all of this when you're going for your paper, because we are thinking of many things when we review a paper, because there are hundreds of them. Many of them are very, very good, and we want that no good paper should be slipped, and we should always be able to put that up in front of the audience. So thanks a lot for joining me in this series. Hopefully we are also planning to have sort of an interview with folks to understand effective paper submission from other reviewers and see and get their opinion on it. So stay tuned for those videos that will be coming up very soon. But this is the end of the series technically for the CFP series. If you have any questions, comments, please do put it in. And hopefully this was help to all of you. Thanks for joining me this time. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.